Well, good evening, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana Weather. Thanks for logging on here to my latest long-range update. It is cold outside today. That fresh snowpack on the ground that we had from a couple of days ago, that snowpack still around. It's going to be continuing to be pretty chilly outside. Lows tonight, by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, mid to upper single digits around most of the area again. So we're talking another incredibly cold morning out there, and unfortunately, temperatures tomorrow just really not going to improve that much as you go up tomorrow afternoon. We're talking temperatures maybe up to 18 to 20 degrees right around the area. It's going to be a very cold day. Then as you wake up on Monday morning, again, temperatures very cold, but not single digits at least. We're talking mid to upper teens, and then there will be some improvement, thankfully, on Monday. By the time we get into the Monday afternoon hours, we may even break it to right at or just above freezing with low 30s likely around the area. So at least, on Monday we've got a little bit of an improvement, but we've got another very cold night coming tonight and a pretty cold day coming tomorrow that we have to deal with before we can get there. Now next week it does look like we're going to have a pretty nice little warm up. In fact, I think some 50s and maybe even some close to 60-degree temperatures are going to return next week, but it's going to come with a price, rain, and copious amounts of rain the way things look. Let me just sort of let me show you what's going on here as we take a look at the GFS. Here's the high pressure that's right overhead, tomorrow, and that's going to cause those just very cold temperatures tonight and tomorrow as well. That'll work its way off to the east. We got some clippers moving to the north, but that's going to stay out of the area. By Tuesday, we've got another system that is moving in here, and that'll bring some warmth with it, but it's also going to bring some shower activity with it, and it looks like it's going to last for a while. Here we are into the overnight hours. Tuesday night, it's still raining, and then we come into Wednesday. We may get a little bit of a break here, the way things look on Wednesday, but then by Wednesday night into Thursday, we get another little system, and you can see just the northern plains and the Great Lakes up there getting hammered with just snow event after snow event, but all of it is staying up there, and it's going to be just a mild, rainy week for us overall. And then we come into another system that will hit us this weekend, and that'll be the next system of interest that we're going to target. If there's going to be anything wintry coming on with it, this would be the one to go with it. Right now, it does not look like a snow event for us, but icing could be a little bit of a concern. It's something that we have to acknowledge. It has showed up in the modeling, although I don't really think it's going to be a major ice event like some have said. I've already gotten messages from some of you on Facebook and on Twitter asking me, hey, I saw some outlets were saying that this was going to be just a devastating blow next weekend with ice. No, well, there was one model that was showing that, but I don't really think it's going to be that way. So let's go through it. All right, the current GFS has a rain, maybe to a little bit of some sleet and freezing rain before it cuts out of here. Remember back to about, say, December the 15th to 17th, right around that time frame, mid-December. You remember there was a storm system that rolled through, and we worked it up, and the modeling a good week in advance just gave us this kind of setup where it looked like it was going to be a pretty impactful storm with some ice on it. And as it got closer, it became more rain with just a little bit of ice, and what ended up happening is we had a light glaze on some things. The roads ended up being fine. It was mainly just sidewalks and cars that had some issues with it. This system next weekend, a week from today, basically looks very similar to that in how it's tracking and how it's developing and how the parameters are. And so I wouldn't rule out some ice with this, but really I think we're probably going to end up on the warm side of it. Let me show you the indices. Let's get into some of the stuff behind the scenes, and I'll give you a little bit of the reasons why here. First off, we look at the North Atlantic Oscillation. Excuse me, folks. This is blocking along the Greenland. So this is what we call the Greenland block. When it's negative, pardon me, my sinuses are going haywire. When it's negative, what you've got going on is a block that can buckle the jet stream and slow those systems down. It can help to bring colder air into our region, put the storm track over us, and we can get wintry type of events with that. But look what you see here in the GFS ensembles. What you see is a positive NAO, no blocking whatsoever going on there. So our 13th, 14th, this is right at our timeline of where we would see that particular storm. It's in the positive. It's not overly positive, but it's in the positive. There's no blocking going on. In fact, later on you go in time, the control run says we're going to have no blocking the rest of the month, basically. And the ensemble mean pretty much agrees with that. It takes us down just slightly negative here for a couple of days, but really this little bit just below the line is more neutral than it is negative. There's no significant blocking showing up here on the GFS ensembles. If you look at the EPS, which is the Euro ensembles, the Euro ensemble prediction system, no blocking going on either, especially with our time frame down here. Maybe later in the month there's some hints from the control run that we might get some decent blocking. It's not showing up here on the ensembles much yet. It's more neutral as you head later in the month. So again, really no significant blocking showing up here on that. So we don't have the blocking in Greenland to help to bring that storm down. So that's one strike against much of anything wintry with us. Here's the Arctic oscillation, and around the 12th or 13th there's a trend toward neutral here. In fact, in the GFS ensembles, it actually goes into the negative just a little bit for a few days here. But right at the storm time frame, it's not there yet. All right. And if we look at the Euro ensembles, the Euro doesn't even take it negative. It goes down to neutral right in our time frame and then trends slightly positive. So Arctic oscillation, this is Canadian air on the move down from Canada moving in, so the cold source is just not going to be there. So now you've got no blocking, and you don't have significant cold sources available for this. Well, the translation here is, folks, you're going to have a very, very, very hard time getting much of anything. The P&A configuration is also in the negative. That means the trough is out to the west rather than out here. So again, the cold stays locked up away from us, not in here. There are some hints that maybe, according to the GFS, we may switch that pattern later in the month, but this has been changing back and forth. If you look at the Euro, the EPS is suggesting maybe as well, but again, it's not had a great track record. If you look at all these bubbles here, the blue line is the analyzed. If you look at all these bubbles, these are previous predictions to what it does, and so you can see the modeling just hadn't had a great job with it, really. So yes, there is a hint of something maybe later in the month, but not much. Just really not a whole lot. Honestly, not a favorable pattern for snow or winter precipitation of any kind as you head later in the month. And if you look at the EPS weeklies here, the Euro weeklies as they're called, well, here's what you get. There's the trough as we're going through it right now. This was responsible for our cold that we're experiencing right now. That's gone. It's going to be replaced by some very warm air, and this is looking at the mid levels of the atmosphere at the 500 millibar level. We're looking at height anomalies that can help us to tell where the storms are going to go, whether it's going to be hotter or colder than normal. And if you look at this, what you've got going on, really, as far as the eye can see, is warmth over a good chunk of this. The Euro weeklies here do have just extremely, we're here into January 24th now. All right, this is an extremely warm pattern. We're finally, maybe as you get into here, coming on to a northwest flow, but still the 540 line, rain snow line, way up to the north there. And as you go through here, you end January. You may have a little bit more of a chance here as you come towards the end of January, beginning of February, but there's not much going on. In fact, the Euro weeklies don't take anything significantly below normal, though, until you get here. Well, this is 13th of February by the time you're getting out here. So January, looking for a very unfavorable pattern for this. Maybe as we get into February, there's a little bit more possible. We'll see. But that said, let's focus on this storm next weekend, because again, we got rain coming in here on Tuesday or so, and then we got rain coming in maybe on Wednesday night and into Thursday, and then we got a system moving in next weekend. So there's going to be plenty of rain with this. Here's how things have taken this out. Well, this is the infamous model that stoked everybody's fears up over this. All right, so watch a very heavy rain event coming in there for Friday, and then watch this low developing down to our south, and it comes in and it gives us a heavy icing event before it rolls away. And so this type of an icing event, if this model would have been right, would give us a good half-inch of ice on everything, and of course that could have some devastating consequences. Yeah, it could be a big ice storm. But I knew whenever I saw this, I just kind of laughed out loud whenever I saw it and said, yeah, right. This type of a configuration, I will just tell you from my experience, this type of a configuration doesn't work with what we've got going on in the atmosphere. I think the GFS is just wrong on this. I really do. I've been forecasting for years, and I could be wrong about this, and it could be a major ice storm. But I sure ain't going to hang my reputation on it right now. I'll tell you right now, I really doubt we're going to get a major ice storm out of this. I just do. I don't think that the parameters are there in the teleconnections. The NAO is not lined up right. The AO is not lined up right. The upper levels of where the trough is positioned at, it's not really lined up right here. What's going to be most likely is that we're going to end up on the warm side of this low rather than the cold side of this low like it's showing. And again, if you go back to the mid-December, it was showing something like this as well. But then as we got closer to the event, it moved that low over and us into the warm sector. And that's really what you're going to see in the modeling, and you're already starting to see it. Let's just take a look at this one. So this model that I showed you was from 7 a.m. yesterday morning. This was 7 p.m. last night in the model run, and already look at this. The low is already shifted to the west a little bit. It's more rain for us than anything, and maybe just a very light glancing something as it exits there. So that's much more reasonable solution, but I have a feeling the low is probably going to track a little bit more like this than what we see in here. Now let's go to the GFS from this morning instead, and look, lo and behold, where that low is. Now, full 24 hours later on this, the icing concern, we are on the warm sector of the low, just like I said in some of my posts on Twitter and Facebook yesterday, like we would end up being. Look at this now, what could be a major storm, major winter storm potential there up in the Great Plains again. And watch this. Here's the low pressure, and it tracks like this. That puts us here in with that. And as the system exit, maybe just a slight little hint of some rain or some rain changing to snow, or rain changing to some sleet or freezing rain as it exits. Nothing of any significance there. In fact, as it exits, the low goes off here, and what happens? High pressure moves in, and what does it do? It eats away at the back of that precipitation shield because it's so intense of a high pressure. This is exactly what we saw in mid-December. We would have had a significant icing event, except that high pressure came in and it ate away at that precipitation shield, and we didn't have much of anything to work with by the time that we were in the cold sector of the low. This is setting up to be another system. It looks like almost identical to mid-December. There is a theory that these storms repeat themselves every so often. It's called the recurring Rossby wave train. And that may be what we're experiencing here, is just another repeat storm like what we saw back in December there, folks. Again, my honest opinion on this is that we're going to be in the warm sector, and it's going to be mostly rain. And the Canadian was showing some ice too. Look at the Canadian today. So the Canadian here run from this morning, well, guess what? It gives us rain. There is some wintry precip with this. It's well to our west. The low tracks right along us according to this, but it's all rain, and we don't get anything out of that. So again, and the high pressure on this, only 1027. You go back here, it's 1047. That's a huge difference in that. Canadian, not always the greatest model, but it's something else to work with at least. But I don't necessarily think either of these are right this far out. But I do think the positioning that we're going to be in the warm side of the low is going to be right. The fact that there's absolutely no blocking to slow this down means to me that it's going to be a similar situation what we saw back then with the conditions. I really think that we're going to be in the warm sector of the low. I really do. What may be a bigger problem for us, though, would be the rain totals with this. So here we go. As you go into Monday and then into Tuesday, Monday night and into Tuesday, that's when the rain starts, and we're looking at accumulated precipitation. By the time Wednesday morning comes here, look at this. You've already got maybe ½ inch to an inch down. And then watch Thursday. Here's Friday. As the storm comes in, and then by the time it's all finished out here on Saturday, the GFS here saying that we could get 3 to 5 inches of liquid rain around the area here. So it may just be that we're in the warm side of this, and the rain may be a bigger story with this. Now, I think that 5 inches may be a little bit overdone. The GFS has had this problem all winter long of bringing these big, heavy precipitation event storms in, and then as we get closer to time, backing them down. So 5 inches may be just a little bit overdone. I don't know that I would buy into that just yet, but a decent rain event, and it could be 2 to 4 inches of rain that we end up getting here, but I don't think it's going to be quite this extreme. We'll have to see. It may be, but I just have my sincere doubts. As we take a look, though, at temperatures, I will say this. The GFS ensembles had been very warm, and the rest of the month they have backed off that a little bit. We're going to enter into a warm period here for Tuesday and Wednesday, and then look at Thursday and Friday up into the low 60s possible around the area. That front does finally move through, and we're talking 40s here mostly as we head into the rest of the month, but there's still a 50 thrown in there. That's pretty mild still for January. Let's just be honest. 45 to 50 degrees is very mild for January. So for those of you, and I will say this, if you look at the Euro ensembles, it's showing a very similar solution to this as well, where we have some very warm days and then it just kind of knocks it off here into the mid 40s here throughout much of the rest of the month, but some 50s return later. So again, either way you dial it with these, we've got some very mild air coming. So if you're saying to me, Michael, when's it going to snow next? I don't see any snow in the future for us for a very long time. In fact, if the Euro weeklies are right, it's going to be February before we get a chance to get anything significant. Now that could certainly change. It's only January the 7th as I'm recording this. But folks, just right now I can tell you that the pattern that we are in right now is not favorable for snow. Doesn't mean it can't snow. There could be some surprise storms that come up along the way, and that's very possible. But right now it doesn't look likely. Right now it looks like an active rain track to me at this point, with maybe some wintry mischief on the back side of some of these systems, and that's about the best that we're going to be able to hope for a good little while. All right, folks. So that's the way things shape up here for the latest long-range update, folks. I'll have another one of these for you very early next week. And of course, keep it tuned right here to Southern Indiana Weather on Facebook and Twitter at SouthernINWX on Twitter, and I'll keep you up to date on this storm for next weekend. But again, if you see these doomsday predictions and these posts that say, oh, it's going to be devastating, it's going to be catastrophic, folks, don't buy into that kind of hype. That kind of wording a day or two before the event is not bad if it's true, but a week out, that's honestly a little bit irresponsible to use that kind of wording. I think honest to goodness truth is it's probably just going to be rain. We'll trend it, folks, and I'll keep you up to date.